Our agenda. I need to let you know, just with this many people here, so I have four people that signed up to speak. Are there any other people who filled out a form to talk to something on the agenda and non-personnel related items? Okay, so we will proceed with the public comment. You will have 3 minutes to make your comments. They need to be non-personnel related and non-student related as far as addressing a specific student's name out of privacy and legal considerations for those personnel and students. Okay, so please make sure you keep comments to that degree out of the room, please. If you have other things to say, you can always fill it out on the feedback form, and the board will review those after the meeting and possibly contact you if we need to get more information. Okay, we're going to start with Josh Ferris. Mr. Ferris wants to talk about misconduct. Remember, Mr. Ferris cannot be personally involved.
I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I will try to address my comments to the school business here.
Okay.
Lyle is a great school. It's a fantastic community, beautiful area. And when I was teaching here last year, I wanted to bring Dr. Akita from the Dalles over to speak about Japanese internment, because he knew a lot about that. And he thought about it for a while, and he finally got back to me, and he said, you know, okay, I agree. I'd like to come and speak to the school about Japanese internment. And I thought this was great. He said, yeah, I got graduated from Lyle. Lyle produced great scholars. We had the best program in the area. It's really sad that, it's kind of gone downhill. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I can't host you anymore at the school because I've been given a gag order where I can't speak to anyone in the community, and I have been banned from the school. The private detective hired by Kelly served me some papers to get rid of me. And then I filed complaints where I alleged some really terrible things involving lies, hostile work environment, misconduct, abuse. If any of those things are true, which I'm not telling you to take my word for it, then we need to wonder if the school is being run by people that are fit to run the school. But it doesn't matter who we hire. Lyle's problems are economic. We have homeless students. We have lack of opportunities. When I graduated from here, I was told I could go to jail for 2 weeks or I could join the Army. I chose to join the Army. I ended up in Iraq, roadside bombs blowing up in my face. A lot of trauma about that. It's the most traumatic thing in my life was being in that military. But that's how I got out of this place. A lot of my friends did, and they got into serious drugs. That's a problem. We're still confronting it. It's gotten worse. I come back here and we're trying to magically fix things by changing things up and experimenting. And it's complete failure. 2 simple things. Support teachers. Let's do 3 classes, 2 semesters, teach us 6 classes, give teachers lots of prep time, good ratio to teacher-student. And then there's not much else. There's not much else you can do. You've got homeless students. We can't fix that in Lyle. That's an economic problem. But we have to have qualified people here at this school. We have to have an environment. I don't know why it takes so long for people to be held accountable. Take Bill Cosby, for example. Decades drugging women and raping them. The mayor of Seattle. I confronted him several times about housing issues in Seattle. He was a serial pedophile, raped kids. Finally resigned last year. I don't know why it takes so long for people to be held accountable. I don't want to drop this. I don't want to be here. It makes me uncomfortable. I have a lot of stress to be here. I'm very upset to be here, but I have to be here. Somebody tells me that my allegations are the tip of the iceberg. I'm told that the drunk driving incident where he's crashing and endangering children and people on the road and all this stuff last year, tip of the iceberg. He killed somebody, a co-worker of his. He killed a co-worker of his, and I can show you the incident report. His name is Wayne Gilman. If, for example, as a teacher here, I was to drive to the Merck parking lot and kill Susan Carey. I mean, can you imagine?
Mr.
This is what we're dealing with.
You need to sit down and be
The guy has killed a coworker.
You're interrupting.
I have got allegations that he stole money from the school. We have a simple resolution for
Mr. Ferris,
this.
you were done.
We have a simple
Have a
resolution
seat.
for this. Let me finish.
No, your time is up.
Let me finish. If anybody has any questions about whether or not he killed somebody, you can look at the records here. If anybody has any questions, it is unacceptable. We're paralyzed by low expectations and fear of retaliation. That is what this guy has brought to this school. He's not from the community, and he should not be making $158,000.
You're out, Mr. Ferris. You're out.
We deserve better. You deserve better.
Thank you.
All right, next person for public comment. I'll remind you again, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Sheriff's here anyway.
Because of you. Because of this.
There you go. All right. Mr. W.J. Morris is here to talk, and he wants to talk about the Dallasport school lease.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and school board members. I'm here tonight to talk about a meeting that I had on Sunday, which was an information-only meeting. During that conversation, of course, there was a slew of questions asked regarding the Dallasport property, the Dallasport Middle School, and the pending lease that is on consent agenda tonight, item number B. And during this discussions and answer question session, the prevailing thing that came up for me and as well as for the Dallasport community is the option to purchase. Okay. As everyone knows, the company, okay, is going to be providing economic opportunities where they're very well deserved as well needed. They'll be an economic driver within the community. We obviously welcome all of that, but it is, if the option to purchase is exercised, that of course would leave the urban growth boundary area in Dallasport without buildable school property. And personally, it is the only piece within the lease that has been discussed or that was revealed to me that I have a concern about. Okay. Because there are, of course, FAA restrictions on building height on that entire property anyway, and I'm sure that the company has done their due diligence on it. It's about the future and what's going to happen, you know, when Dallasport actually becomes a city, you know, because that, with this kind of economic driver, that might not be quite as far off as what we think. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, staying on the same topic, Mr. McDermott, Don McDermott, would like to also speak to that.
Hi, everybody. I'm Don McDermott. I'm the chairman of the Dallasport Community Council. And it came to my attention pretty recently that there was pending action to lease the middle school.
Mr. McDermott, could we have you kind of stand over here so the board can hear you too? I'm sorry.
Should I be addressing the board rather than the public?
Yeah, technically. Yeah, that's all right.
Sorry.
As long as everybody can hear, we want everybody to hear what you have to say.
I apologize.
That's
And
right.
if I'm not loud enough, just let me know. I don't know how to comment on the lease because I don't know very much about the lease. I've heard things that were said about the lease. I'd like to see the lease. I have expertise in real estate. I've been in real estate for it'll be 25 years in May. I'd like to be sure that we're signing a contract that's got advantages for both the school system and citizens of Dallasport and the citizens of Deck County. Without knowing more about the lease, I can't really comment on it, but I hear things, and everything I hear is just rumor. I'm not a rumor guy. I don't like rumors. I certainly can't, seeing what happened here tonight, I certainly can't encourage that kind of thing in public, and I don't. But I would like to have more information about the lease, and I'd like to see that we're getting fair value for the property and that we're not taking away a valuable asset that's in public hands now and putting it into private hands on a semi-permanent basis. If the lease is a 10-year lease, it's got automatic renewals for the next 20 years, then that's a 30-year lease. It's not a 10-year lease. And if there's a purchase option in there, I'd like to see that too. I'd just like to see the document. I'm sure you guys did a good job because you do a good job. But I'd just like to verify it because it's right in the heart of my community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker who wants to talk to something on the agenda is Elizabeth Spino. I just want to make sure, Elizabeth, before you start your comments, you do not talk about a student's name or anything.
I won't, no. I just actually wanted to talk to, I guess, a lot of these are my fellow employees. I had just was wondering what is bullying? So that's kind of where I'm coming from. My daughter was bullied. I was out sick from work 2 days. I was puking, had a headache, I was sick. I was at home in bed. She told me about it Saturday. She was crying. She's back here. She come into school Thursday, I believe, and 4 boys attacked her in the gym. There's no supervision during lunchtime in the gym. The 4 boys had attacked her with dodgeballs. She thought she could get away. They were blocking the door, so she was halfway between. She was like by the stage.
I'm sorry, that wasn't your timer.
I hope not. And the 4 boys that attacked her were blocking the door, so she went towards the locker room, girls' locker room. She ran into the girls' locker room. 2 of the boys stopped. 2 of the boys continued. Went into the girls' locker room, continued to attack my daughter. She was so upset, they shut the lights off in the girls' locker room while attacking her. I actually came in that Monday. I was really upset. I believe I went straight to him in the office. And I said, I want to press charges. My daughter won't come to school. And Jen got all upset, doing all this, and oh man, says, well, I can't get the video. It's been longer than 3 days. I said, oh really? Thursday till Monday. Can't get a video so I can watch. I wanted to see both sides of what happened. I was not allowed to see that video. I was told he would be in at noon. Never showed up to work. And then I talked to Mr. Bernie, and Julie knew all about it. But I was told by Mr. Kelly, only one person knew about it, and that was him, Nevaeh, and Mr. Bernie seen him crying, my daughter crying outside of his office, and asked her what happened. She started to tell him. And my daughter Adrian, who is a 4.0 student, goes to school, says, Mom, he was so horrible to her. He yelled at her. He told her to shut up. He told her she was looking for attention. Who does that? A student who's never been in trouble, ever been in trouble. It's defied everything I've ever went to school for. Never believed I had just reading and teaching. I'm going to be a teacher, regardless of any of this. It doesn't matter about my job. It's all good. All the people in here that know that I'm a good person. They know that my kids are good people. And she didn't deserve that. I was told by him. That's not bullying. Unless it's repeated. She had marks in her throat where she had dodgeballs that don't hurt. I beg you to take you down there and show you how they don't hurt. You're asking any of these people that you pee. Ask them if it hurts. When they get 2 inches away, it hurts. They have well marks on the throat. My daughter, right there, 6th grade little girl. 6th grade.
Ms. Spino.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's all right, I understand it's a very emotional thing.
It is.
and
I'm sorry.
I would like to hear more about this, but it doesn't need to be in a
That's
public
fine.
meeting. I would be glad to sit down and talk with you
Yeah.
about it and see where we can help you to pursue
Yeah.
something if you.
I didn't resign because of that. I just want you to know that.
No, and.
I had already chose
we-
before.
We do take those matters seriously. and
It
so-
is very
It
serious.
is
She's
serious.
still scared.
Yes,
She's in Clickitat, somewhere we've never wanted our kids to be back at.
I know, you were here when you came here, so.
Anyway, thank you very
for your
much.
comments. I'm sorry about that, I really am. We'll pursue it further. All right.
Joy, let's go.
All right, next thing on the agenda is the consent agenda. Okay, the consent agenda items that are listed here are district employment items, Dallasport Elementary School, ASB funds, the general fund, transportation funds, and the prior board meetings minutes. I have a motion. Is there any discussion for the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, is there a second? All in favor? Motion passes. Okay, old business. Item 7. We have second reading of policy 3205, the sexual harassment of students. These policies that we're going to be going through, for those of you in the audience, they are reviewed by the Washington School Directors Association and their legal teams, and they are often brought up. We usually have multiple policies every month that are brought up for review in order to keep our school policies in line with state law. And so we'll be going through these. Any items that are receiving a second reading, we'll be taking a vote on. And then any items that are first reading, we will be just noting that we have been reading them and we're looking at them. So we have 2 months before we make a decision on this. All right, so policy 3205, sexual harassment of students. Any comments?
The only thing I'll say in all of these is we don't have really a stopgap, like if somebody feels they can't come to you, where do they go? Is there another like layer? Because we're such a small school, most schools have, multiple places. How can we address that?
I think there's one structure that's already in place, Barb, which is the formal complaint procedure that's outlined in both board policy and procedure. I'd have to do some digging to call out the exact number, but if there's something that's handled that people don't want to come to me or they've got concern about, they can always do that complaint procedure and that goes to the board. That flows through Deb's office.
Okay, and so probably we need to make that available. Does it have to be part of these policies or?
No.
Okay.
Anything that anyone had a concern about, they can petition and submit that information to the board. And Deb's done a great job actually of updating all of the information on the board webpage. It's pretty easily accessible. Do you want to say any more about where that's at?
It is on the webpage. I'll have to send you. Sorry, I don't have it.
No, that's okay. I just want to make sure that we have some layers here because we're a small school and we have, that issue of, we only have one place to go. So I just want to make sure that it's someplace where people can access it. Okay.
Okay, do I have a motion to pass policy 3205 then as written?
I will make that motion that 3205 be passed as written.
Second. Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve policy 3205 as written. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we have 2 policy updates that are also on the second reading. Policy 5005, employee and volunteers disclosure certification requirements, assurances and approval, and policy 2022, electronic resources and internet safety. Any discussion on those? Okay, do we have a motion to approve those?
That's a move.
Is there a second?
Second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded to approve policy 5005 and policy 2022. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. On to new business, budget report. Susan Carroll, business manager.
All right. Deb put a convenient budget tab in the packet so you can actually get to the budget part without having to go through 15 pages. So the first page there is our enrollment. It's holding very steady. It's looking great. If you compare it to this time last year, we're up by 10 kids. And we're holding that. We're not losing every month. We're holding it. It looks really good. And you'll notice too that there's no, I didn't attach that employment FTE as I normally do because the employment numbers have not changed. We have one resignation, one hire, and they're both for the same hours, so it's a wash. All right, the second page. So I changed them around a little bit for you guys. We've got each month from September until December. And instead of just putting down the percentage of the budget that had been spent for that category, I also put the amount spent, and then that second number is the actual budgeted amount. So you can see when I say 40%, it's actually this much out of this much. So you can go down that list and look at that. Does anybody have any questions?
No, thank you for doing that. We appreciate it. That's a lot better.
And then after that is the actual budget status report. Now it's very long and somewhat boring. And unless you guys have questions, I'm done.
Transportation vehicle fund, where are we at, Susan, with the bus situation? Are we leasing the bus? Or what
We are not leasing the bus, we bought the bus.
We bought the bus.
We bought the bus, and that check will go out the end of this month. It'll actually, that fund has about $141,000 in it. The bus was about $139,000.
That's good.
So, woo, we got enough to pay for it. So that'll kind of drain that account, but that's just something
That's what that account's for?
yeah, that's what it's for, and we knew that was going to happen, so, and I've got lots of rave reviews about the new bus. Driving so nice, it's not as bumpy, it's more quiet. So that is that, and that was something we talked about last spring. So that finally happened. It took a really long time to get a new bus.
And rumor has it that you actually went on the pickup. Is that true, Susan?
I did, and it was glorious. I got a tour. I didn't get any chocolates from Western Bus. Bradley got all the chocolates, but
Yeah, the recognition is saying.
yeah, it was a very interesting experience. I had no idea what goes into making a bus.
All right, so we have first reading of some new policies that we are reviewing. Policy 2023, which is on digital citizenship and media literacy. Policy 3116 on children in foster care, and policy 5030 on financial reports. And then there's some updates to some policies. Those other ones were new policies. These are updated policies. Policy 2190 on highly capable identification, how we identify our highly capable students. Policy 3115 on homeless students. Policy 3122 on unexcused absences. Policy number 3210 on non-discrimination for students. Policy 3240 on student conduct. Policy 3241 on classroom management and discipline. Policy 4210 on dangerous weapons. Policy 5401 on sick leave. And policy 6020 on systems of funds and accounts. Does anybody wish to comment on these at this time? Or we'll just pass them along to the second reading next month? No comments? If you're in, Mark.
No, we've had these to read and I think the questions that I had, I've had mine answered already.
Okay. So those policies will then go on to a second reading for next month's approval or rejection.
Quick question on 23, what is it updated as far as last time?
This is a new policy, it's not an update, so that's something that they've added. policy book gets thicker.
Is that public record?
Yes, all of the policies and procedures are on the webpage. And as they're adopted, Deb updates the webpage. So. All right, superintendent report.
Thank you. Sorry, family pick. Well, I just want to start off tonight by saying how much of a privilege it is to share tonight's mid-year report with everyone that's here, especially our kids and the staff, because everything good that's happening in our school and our district is really the result of a lot of people coming together and working really, really hard. I want to start off by pointing out, and if I can get somebody to turn off everything except the one on the far left, that would be great. I want to start by just pointing out this picture. This is almost everybody in the entire school district that gathered about 2 months ago when we received word from the state of Washington that Dallasport Elementary School was being recognized as a school of distinction. And I'll say a little bit more about that transition to become a school of distinction, but you'll notice there are some folks that are sort of seated in the front and center, and everybody else is pointing and thumbs up to them. That's our pre-K through 5th grade staff that really has been just doing monumental work to transform the way that our kids learn and the success that they have in those early grades. I would say to you, I'll talk about sort of the transition within the district, but one of the most significant transitions, and to me, metrics of success in our district, is that when I started in the district in 2015, of our 3 school buildings, 2 of them were designated as failing schools. They were labeled by the state of Washington as priority schools, which means they were performing in the lowest 5% in the state of Washington in English and mathematics. The transition for Dallasport Elementary is to go from the lowest 5% to the top 5% in the state in terms of growth in less than 3 years. And that's just really a tribute to the great teachers and staff that work here in the district. For those of you that might be wondering, what is this mid-year review? My daughter, who scooted out a couple minutes ago, was querying me like, so Dad, this is a board meeting, and tell me more about it. And I said, well, the 5 people that I get to sit with, they're my bosses, and just like you get evaluated in your job, one of their jobs is to evaluate the superintendent. And so twice a year, I get a chance to come to the board and reflect on the goals that the board and I have set and show evidence of progress towards those goals. And so this is the mid-year check-in. It happens every year in January. The end of the year check-in happens in the month of May. And so for community members that are really interested in watching the success of your school, for sure these 2 board meetings, if you don't attend any others, these would be the ones to come to. These are the 5 goals that the board reached consensus on earlier this year. The first one, to establish a respectful, positive district culture centered on teaching and learning. The second goal, to focus all improvement efforts on continuous growth, mindful of grade level standards and proficiency. The third goal, to grow the fiscal health of our district, ensuring an adequate ending fund balance and developing systems and structures to regularly update the infrastructure of our district on behalf of our students. The fourth goal, to align all district systems and structures for fiscal efficiency and education outcomes for children at the core. And the fifth goal, to shift the ethos of the Lisle School District to eliminate out-of-district transfers, encourage transfers into our district, and ensure that a mindset of service and positive outcomes for all students permeates our work regardless of position. I've tried to now show, as we move forward, evidence of each of these goals slide by slide. So the first goal, again, to establish a respectful, positive district culture centered on teaching and learning. One of the things that I love to do when I go in to do classroom observations with teachers is when I catch a magical moment, I take a picture because I want to share it with all of you. And if you're not into the practice of tracking the district Facebook page or the district website, I would encourage you to check those out because there's multiple things that show up there each week. This is from a class in Shelley Spadero's kindergarten classroom last week. And it ties into this goal because this was the opening circle that Shelley was doing to start the morning with her kindergartners. And what she was doing, it's an intentional social skills builder for kids, and it allows kids to greet each other by name. And in this case, they were acknowledging something that they liked about their friend that was sitting next to them. So one of the things that we really try to do is not assume that any child necessarily comes with everything they need to know and be able to do. And this is a great example of really intentionally teaching that respectful, positive district culture that we're trying to reach. This first bullet, the CEE staff perception study, documenting Lyle staff belief in themselves, their peers, and their administration, is a study that we started having to conduct when Lyle was identified as a failing district. And when I worked at OSPI, one of the things that we told schools they had to do was they had to do this staff perception survey that interviewed all the staff, certificated and classified, as many kids as we can get to take the survey, and as many parents as we can get to take the survey. And the reason why when I was at OSPI, we directed underperforming schools to do that is there's a set of national norms that schools that are underperforming and get better, they do a certain set of things. And we know if we compare how we're doing to sort of that national standard of excellence, we can track our progress over time. So this year was the third year that we did this staff perception survey, and I just want to point out some of the highlights that I gleaned when I went through. I actually haven't shared this entire survey with the staff, but once I do, all three of these surveys will be public record and we'll put on the website. So if you want to go in and mine through these, you're welcome to do that. Here's a few highlights from the CE staff perception survey. 34 respondents filled out the survey, which is almost every employee in the district. It's conducted by the Center for Educational Effectiveness out of Bellevue. The first one that I wanted to share with you, 100% of our staff responded that they share a high sense of urgency to improve the school on behalf of our kids. 100% of our staff. 90% of our staff said that there's a high level of trust and openness within the staff as we do our work together. They took several of our responses and compared them with the state excellent schools, national excellent schools, and gave us a report out on these 9 characteristics of highly effective schools. They compared us to high improving schools, schools that are getting better quickly, high performing schools that are at the top of their game, and national leaders. And in Lyle, our mean scores in every category were at or above all 3 of those other categories. It was pretty impressive to see. They also showed the exact same thing for the percentage of positive scores, meaning when all the staff responded to these questions, they compared the number of positive responses all of our staff gave compared to those 3 categories, high improving, high performing, and national leaders. And again, Lyle was above all of those other categories in the mean scores in every area measured. Some other highlights. 97% of our staff share a high sense of urgency around the need to improve and are committed to that improvement. 97% of our staff said, my principal facilitates systems and processes to support school improvement. 93% of our staff said, my principal cares about me as a person. And 93% of our staff said, my principal is committed to quality education. Again, these will be public in the next month or so, and so I would encourage you to check back and mine those in detail. Of our student survey, very similar results. 192 kids replied to the student survey, and we had 40 parents that responded to the survey, and both of those were also overwhelmingly positive. As we go down the checklist here, other pieces under Goal 1 are continued pre-K to 5th grade structure, ensuring that this is both a certificated and a classified teacher in every pre-K through 5th grade classroom. We are leveraging this year our priority grant dollars. The last year we'll get that money from the state to bring in elementary specialists to help us put in an intervention and support plan. Many of you in the room have already volunteered to be mentors for our juniors and seniors. If you haven't, I would encourage you to sign up. Right now, 100% of the juniors and seniors in Lisle School District have community mentors that are meeting with them at least once a month to support their growth towards life after high school. We've got a stable, growing K-12 enrollment. You heard that we're sitting right at 240, which is 10 students above where we were last year and 10 students above where we built our budget for this year. And we acquired a BEST grant this year to support our new teachers as they come into the classroom, and also 2 administrative intern grants to support our 2 administrative interns. Goal 2 is to focus all improvement efforts on continuous growth, mindful of grade level standards and proficiency. And these first 2 bullets I've already talked about. The first was elementary growing from being a priority school to a school of distinction. The first bullet there is actually about our middle school. Our middle school was designated as a SIG school. That was 1 notch lower than a priority school. We received a huge amount of money from the state of Washington, and our middle school exited all improvement status and is no longer identified as needing improvement. You've already heard from the kids about the Running Start program that we launched this year. We also started this year an advanced placement and honors English language arts course for our high school students. We just finished a really successful 8th period initiative where our goal was to target any secondary students who had any grade lower than a C. And what happened was all of our secondary staff stayed every day after school from 3 to 5, and we invited our kids lovingly to stay from 3 to 5 with us. And many kids stayed. Not only did we have a ton of kids move off that DNF list, but we also had lots of kids that had C's and B's who stayed to improve their grades so they could have a higher GPA. And our semester just ended today, so we're excited to report that data out next week to you all. We started iReady assessments to monitor the growth in grades 2 through 12 and reestablished DIBELS as an early literacy indicator for our kindergarten through 2nd graders. We give our PSAT now to all of our 10th and 11th graders, and in March this year is the first time ever we'll be given the SAT on our campus to all of our junior and senior kids. And all of those interventions around the PSAT and the SAT are really focused to remove barriers so our kids have better access to college. All of those things, we take care of the cost for the kids. That's part of what we fund with district funds. And then last but certainly not least, differentiation to support academic standards through flexible cross-grade level groupings. One of the coolest things about the unification of all the kids on this campus is that when we have a brilliant 7th grader that's ready for geometry, they just move down the hallway and take geometry with the high school kids. So we're really able to serve the needs of each of our kids wherever they're at. You heard the Running Start kids talk about accessing upper level college curriculum. We start that actually in elementary and middle school by giving kids a chance to challenge up. If they're academically ready for more rigorous curriculum, we want them to be challenged at their highest level of performance. Goal 3 is to grow the fiscal health of the district, ensuring an adequate ending fund balance and developing systems and structures to regularly update the infrastructure for our students. The first piece up there was such a pleasure this year to have Susan on board as our fiscal manager and to develop our budget last June with the board that really was mindful of the district priorities. We made some decisions about funding. There were some extra allocations that we made because we knew the kids needed those things, but we developed the budget together and the budget has performed well. When Susan closed the books from last year, our ending fund balance had grown from when I started in 2015. Our ending fund balance for a district budget of about $4 million annually was $50,000. That's not much of a savings account. In fact, at the very beginning, there were months where Susan was checking the bills against payroll to see if we had enough to pay all the bills because we had to make payroll. And I was pleased to report a couple of board meetings that ending fund balance when we closed last year has grown from $50,000 to $300,000. And one of the big pieces of that was we knew that the unification of all the kids on this campus would be a more efficient way to spend funds, and that actually has played out, and we've realized that within our school system. This is a picture of opening the George Cooper Health and Fitness Center. Almost all of the resources were donated for that facility. And for those of you that live in the community that don't access a weight facility, we're probably a month away from giving public community access to come and work out in the weight room if you'd like to do that off school hours. We were blessed to have a Lisle alum donate $35,000 to create a Lisle Schools Foundation that has already been deposited, and this year is the first year that we'll be able to access that $35,000 for additional grant funds for our graduates each year. And we've set that fund up so that we'll hopefully be earning a good interest rate and each year be giving away the interest and scholarships to our kids. So hopefully that fund lasts forever, and maybe at some point we'll get some other donations that'll grow that so we can give more away for our kids. And then last but not least, continue to aggressively pursue all new funding possibilities from the state. Our money comes from the state in these funky forms you fill out on the computer called iGrants. There's 1 million of them, and many larger districts have teams of people that query these and fill them out. Lisle's team is Susan and I, but we're getting pretty good at getting them. And so it's been fun to get new funding sources that we haven't received in the past. Examples of that would be the BEST grant and some of those other pieces that you actually have to compete and apply for to get the money for our district. Goal 4 is to align all district systems and structures for fiscal efficiency and educational outcomes for children at the core. 5 bullet points here. First, transparent budgets and accountability with staff, families, and community. Second bullet, continued efficiencies from the district unification that I mentioned already. We've been able to leverage our transportation for multi-purpose response for our kids. So we have an after-school tutorial program. 4 days a week we run an after-school bus that goes home at 5. We allow our middle school kids and athletes to ride that bus as well. So again, trying to remove any barriers that would prevent somebody from getting involved in the school. And then you already heard a couple comments tonight about the Dallasport lease. Super excited about that and the possibilities that that will bring into the district. That lease will provide the district with monthly revenue that will flow into our capital budget that can only be spent on capital improvements for district properties. So when I think about this facility here, that we have not had the monies or resources to do the kinds of things we need to do to make upgrades for our kids, the lease at Dallasport will actually drive funds for here that will allow us to improve things for our kids on this campus. So we're pretty excited about that. And not next week, but the week after, we'll also be launching a revitalization effort to the Dallasport softball and track fields. And that's being at least partially funded by our lessee, who has put up $10,000 to go into that process starting a week from Monday. So we're really excited about that. Goal 5 is to shift the ethos or the culture of our district to influence student transfers and ensure that a positive mindset of service and positive outcomes permeates all our work regardless of position. We launched at the beginning of the year monthly Lisle Community Cares meetings, trying to get more parents involved. We had to cancel 2 in a row, but we're going to be back at it in February and would invite any of you that want to get involved as a parent or community member to seek those meetings out. We'd love to have you at the table. Mr. Bruni's done an awesome job this year with our student leaders, just giving our kids more leadership opportunities out in the community. We're regular partners at the Lions Lunch. We've got an upperclassman and a middle schooler that go down every Tuesday and help serve our seniors. Our kids have been super involved across campus and with various activities. If anyone's looking for something to do a week from Friday, we've got a dance and we're looking for chaperones. So, and that's a leadership activity as well. We've had a consistent growing student enrollment, consistent growing pre-K programming. Some of you may not know, 2 years ago we didn't have preschool in Lisle. As of today, we've got 36 kids accessing preschool here on this campus, and that's a combination of ECAP kids and community pay kids. So an excellent opportunity to get our kids in and grow their literacy and capabilities before they even start kindergarten. We've also really tried to work hard. We've put together a team of adults on campus who are really aggressively trying to support all of our juniors and seniors in college applications, scholarships, all of those things. I think I'm at 6 now FAFSAs that I filled out with a kid and their parents side by side. It's a frustrating process because that step to go from high school to life after high school is complicated and convoluted at best. And so we've tried to develop a network here in the school with a number of us to support the kids no matter what they need to get that piece done. We've increased our support and translation services for our non-English speaking families, have grown our collaboration with ESD for serving our special education students. This is actually a picture of Cougar Quest. It was a camp that we ran last summer where any of our middle schoolers that wanted to participate had about 9 days of sort of outward bound experiential learning, which was awesome. This is a hike up at the top of a waterfall. I'm not pictured because I'm not sure I made it to the, no, I did make it. I think I've taken the picture, but great time with our middle school kids to help them transition back to school. And last but not least, just continued connections wherever we're able to support the Lions, Ole's Classic, and given space here as a district for the startup of the new Lisle Community Council. So with that concludes my presentation of our mid-year checkpoints, and I appreciate being able to share that with everybody.
All right, Curtis, sometimes I feel like we ignore you over there. We need to move your table over and connect you to us. Curtis is one of our 2 student representatives to the board. He's here tonight. Casey Mengert is the other student, and he's not here. Curtis, did you have anything you wanted to say before we move into the next phase about anything, how things are going from a student perspective, or whatever? We were going to add you to the agenda, and somehow we didn't get on
I guess I could talk about how the leadership class is going. Sure. My 7th grade class, and it's improved greatly. I'm really happy that I get to be a part of it again. And so what basically our leadership class is we advertise for dances, we set up the dances, we we make little extracurricular activities. I put on a bonfire last year. But yeah, it's going really well right now. We actually, for football, we made a giant stencil of a cougar. That way we could have a cougar in the middle of our football field. I'm just happy how it's turned out so far.
Good, thank you. From now on, just be prepared. I'm sorry to put you on the spot like that, but we will ask you every meeting from now on. Deb, could you make sure that they're added to the regular agenda section for the student? Thank you. All right, so the next thing on our agenda is an executive session. Executive sessions are held by boards for specific reasons. There's a limited number of these reasons why an executive session can be held under law. And we're going to be using reason G under RCW 42.30.110 section G to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a public employee. The executive session will take about an hour. We expect to reconvene in open session around 8 o'clock, but we may have to extend that. If we extend it, we'll make an announcement. We'll have to ask everyone to leave the room at this time. There may be a possible action to follow, a motion and a vote, but we won't know until after the executive session is over whether we will make a motion or not. So you're welcome to stick around, and like I said, we will update you when it gets close to an hour if we're returning to open session or if we're going to remain in executive session for a period of time. All right, thank you for coming. You are leaving. Yeah, we'll take 5 minutes before we start the break.